There are not many games developed in post-Soviet countries that were recognized by the whole world. And games that managed to raise the hype even before the release can be counted by fingers on one hand. One of these games is the topic of today's video, Atomic Heart. What kind of a game is it? Why is it so interesting to the public? And what should you expect from it? You're on Drigmatic. Please sit back, leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell button because we are about to begin. Atomic Heart has been haunting the information field for quite a while now, making announcements from time to time. And the closer the release date, the louder the announcements. But it would be foolish to deny that many were hyped for the game the moment the first trailer was released 4 years ago. The videos released after 2018 not only increased an already huge fanbase, but also heightened the interest of the gaming community in general. Today, it's hard to excite somebody with a new game because there's always a new game that's about to release. But here's the paradox. Despite the fact that every other gamer has heard of Atomic Heart, only a few are able to actually answer the question, what exactly is this game anyway? Okay, let's start from afar, from the development. The game was and still is being developed by Montfish, a well-known studio founded in 2016. It needed millions of dollars to launch such an ambitious project. And the studio managed to get some investments and subsequently got large companies like Tencent involved. Nvidia, by the way, themselves contacted Montfish and provided them with all the necessary hardware, access to a special version of Unreal Engine 4, technology and related consulting. Thus, for example, the game supports ray tracing, which I won't be able to appreciate anyways, because I'm still a proud user of a GTX 1660 Super. But enough babbling. Many employees work tirelessly on a potentially great project. However, the studio has undergone some major and minor reshuffles. Some employees left the studio with a loud door slam, saying that the state of affairs left much to be desired. Others picked up on these statements and went into all sorts of ridiculous stuff, like even claiming that the game does not exist. But as it often happens, time has put everything in its place. Montfish invited gaming journalists multiple times to show operational builds of the game and gameplay trailers where you can clearly see the progress that has been made and continues to come out to this very day. Okay, enough about the development. What about the game? Atomic Heart is, as you may have probably guessed, a first-person shooter with a hint of RPG, as well as crafting and stealth elements. Perhaps the first thing players pay attention to is the setting and the gameplay. Before we move on to the latter, let's talk about the setting a bit more. After all, it's really interesting. It's hard to overestimate the creative potential of the Soviet era. The USSR is an inexhaustible source of inspiration, some kind of a creative abyss. The aesthetics of the era of Soviets is continuously exploited, and in our today's case, is exploited quite competently, in my opinion. So the game's story takes place in the alternative 1930s. Professor Dmitry Sergeyevich Sechanov of the Brain Research Institute discovers a new substance called polymer. To put it brief, it's an electric storage medium. Thanks to its electrochemical properties, scientists managed to reach unprecedented heights in robotics. The research is suspended because of World War II. But in 1942, the Soviet army defeats the enemy. The victory, however, comes at the cost of the lives of millions. The country experiences a grave demographic crisis. There is an enormous lack of workforce. Factories are standing idle. To compensate for the lack of human resources, the government instructs the Brain Research Institute and Professor Sechanov in particular to resume robot production and automatize as many work processes as possible. And the scientists successfully fulfilled the task. Enterprise number 3826 is built with various complexes on its territory where polymer undergoes further research. Thanks to the robot control system Collective 1.0 and Polymer's ability to establish itself in the human body, it is now possible to control androids with the power of mind. Machines become an integral part of both Soviet workers' and intellectuals' daily life. Robots assist and sometimes completely replace humans in everyday life, production, military, and even medicine. But as it turned out, this was not the way to heaven. Despite a rather quick, compared to the real history, victory in World War II and a great technological leap, the country still has a lot of problems. The mass robotization of many processes leaves hundreds of thousands unemployed. Their professions are simply no longer relevant in the new high-tech world. As a result, their standard of living drops drastically. Consequently, districts like this one appear, with low-income housing units, which is a very vivid demonstration of the class inequality that engulfs the alternative version of the Soviet Union. As they say, it never rains, but it pours. In 1955, on the eve of the launch of the new version of the system, Collective 2.0, Enterprise number 3826's neural network is hacked. Robots get out of control and start attacking humans. An uprising of the machines begins. The player will have to take on the role of Major Sergei Nechayev, call sign P3, a special assignments officer. He will have to deal with the incident by any means necessary, and there are quite a lot of means. That smoothly leads us to the gameplay. It combines long-range and melee combat mixed with additional abilities granted by the polymer glove. It's a new invention that allows you to introduce polymer into your body, thereby giving it new abilities. For example, to lift objects and enemies in the air, freeze them, or strike them with an electrical discharge. With the help of this glove, or as it is also called polymer manipulator, you can restore health by using these medical capsules. Another gameplay feature is the ability to use two different types of weapons simultaneously. By the way, the game is expected to have about 30 types in total. Most of them can be customized. That is, you will be able to craft your own weapon from all kinds of scrap, which you'll have to loot first. And we're talking not only about guns. You won't be able to use it often due to the limited amounts of ammo, which means that grabbing an iron bludgeon and smashing the metal bastards with it will be a usual thing to do. But you can't solve all the problems with brute force either. It will deplete your stamina, which is also limited. The enemies here are ferocious, dangerous, and have numerical superiority while you are alone. It is crucial to make good use of your inventory. Burn the first enemy with the Wonder Glove while keeping distance with the second one by firing your AK, then butcher the third one and hack the last one. It's also important to mind your surroundings and make use of it as well. After all, it's better not to raise alarm at all and slip past the enemy unnoticed. In short, there is a lot of diversity, and it is one of the key features of the upcoming game. It's common knowledge that judging by the trailers and reviews made by the various game journalists, Atomic Heart resembles a rumbling mixture of Prey, Bioshock, and at times even Deus Ex and Dishonored. Do you know what all of these games have in common? Immersive sim. I don't know about the industry, but gamers are sure damn hungry for this genre. The problem is that the opinions of those who have had a chance to play Atomic Heart have divided. Some say that the game's skeleton is a solid immersive sim with shooter and RPG elements laid on top like meat and skin, while the others saw no immersiveness at all. According to them, the game is a pure linear shooter, somewhat like the first Half-Life. Leaving aside the variety of opponents, of course, which consists of robots and mutants, the reason the player will often have to combine weapons with different types of damage and use active skills. It's no accident that everyone compares the game to Bioshock, because the developers themselves, according to their statements, if not have been directly influenced by Bioshock, then certainly wanted to create a franchise of the same level. The more flattering it must have been for them to read a tweet of Ken Levin, the father of Bioshock, who was impressed with Atomic Heart and tweeted that he shared the trailer with his colleagues from the Ghost Story studio praising the game. Yes, getting back to the game. The developers clearly created their virtual world with a great passion to detail. That's pretty obvious. Just take a look at the interiors of large halls and rooms, at the architecture of entire buildings and their design. And the robot design, of course. Every machine that comes your way has a unique function of its own, by which I mean that it wasn't originally designed as a killing machine. It was humbly doing its job according to a well-defined program until there has been an error in the system and you showed up. Here, for example, we have one of the boss fights with an enemy named Hedgie. At first glance, it's a weird round wonder waffle made God knows for what. But if you dig a bit deeper, you can learn more about this peculiar machine. For example, that Hedgie is actually a mountain reconnaissance robot, and it was designed to collect soil and plants in unexplored, hard-to-reach mountainous areas. It needs such a great number of different limbs to move freely on rough terrain, and the tough armor is needed to protect it from rock slides. Once you learn all of that, you will no longer have any questions regarding the existence and functions of this beast. These two, metal beauties, who've managed to become the game's showpiece in just a couple of appearances, also have their purpose. They're the personal bodyguards of Professor Sechin. And despite their graceful and even somewhat harmless looks, these ladies can effortlessly deal with any enemy. All in all, such approach increases the immersion, making you believe in the game's world as it has its own lore, rules, laws, inhabitants, and tools. Also, I'd like to give a mention of its own to the destructibility of certain objects. Pay attention to this robot before Nechayev approaches it. Firstly, it's not like the robot is unhappy to see us. It just doesn't care. The android is so tired of its life that nothing scares him anymore. Secondly, take a look at its synthetic skin. It's still intact, just like the face. After a couple of hits with a sharp chopping weapon, there's no face nor skin left. Quite an impressive damage effect. Although I doubt that it will make it to the release version of the game, but if it does, it's gonna be awesome. The game sure has enough robots so that the player doesn't get tired of them. We have small ones equipped with a buzzsaw, humanoid ones like the ones we've just described, flying bees that restore the health of their comrades, and quite thick-skinned ones who have appeared in trailers multiple times. However, as mentioned earlier, among our enemies there will also be living creatures, if you will. Mostly, they are victims of experiments, apparently people that have mutated into some kind of symbiosis between predatory plant and zombie. Some have been afflicted more than others, which lead to their deformations being much more severe. Atomic Heart will undoubtedly have spacious locations to explore, but under no circumstances can it be called a sandbox. The in-game world is a semi-open one. It can be explored to find new locations and side quests. The closest thing that comes to mind is the map from Metro Exodus. The story, by the way, is also non-linear with two possible endings. Despite the fact that the entire game is a first-person shooter, it will contain third-person cutscenes created on the game's engine. This can be seen in some of the trailers, including the last one. As for the locations, it is worth telling about the Icar flying platform, where one of the 4 institute complexes called Chelome is based. It is a design bureau for mechanical engineering and urban planning. The platform itself runs on nuclear reactors and is held up by the propellers that interact with the Earth's magnetic field. The Chelome logo can also be seen on the protagonist's jacket. A major role in the game is played by one of the first scientific and technical complexes of the Enterprise number 3826, the Pavlov Complex. It is an experimental medical complex. The complex's main domains are organic and biomolecular chemistry, virology, neurobiology, living organism adaptation to an aggressive environment, recovery and cloning of human organs. The Pavlov complex is responsible for the research of interactions between human and animal nervous systems and the polymeric jelly. Next is the botanical Vavilov complex. I think the complex's name already tells everything about its research and experiment subjects. It is reasonable to assume that this is where we will encounter mutants with leaves sticking out of their mouths. They kinda resemble the Demogorgons from Stranger Things, but as trailers show, photosynthetic pests of all sizes are gonna bother us throughout the whole game. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention Neptune. It is an underwater platform, part of the Chelome complex. Neptune specializes in underwater depth studies, oceanology, and marine biology. Remember those amazing installations with underwater tunnels? Well, first of all, it's not water. Although it contains fish and you can swim in it, it's actually polymer, a liquid storage medium with the properties of heavy water and silicon. And secondly, such installations are probably created by the platform. And it's most likely there that you'll have to dive into this substance. But that's just what I think. However, it is safe to say that some of the in-game puzzles will be tied to the polymer tunnels through which the player will have to find his way out. Looking back at the trailers and all of the above, it becomes obvious why the game has provoked and continues to provoke such genuine interest among gamers. First of all, as previously mentioned, it's the captivating setting that juxtaposes Soviet retrofuturism with its colossal buildings and lush halls with rural areas. Secondly, add the gameplay that combines shooter, a wonder gauntlet, looting, crafting, stealth, and maybe even certain elements of immersive sim. It's hard not to anticipate such a game, isn't it? Plus, the game has some really good graphics. I envy the owners of RTX cards. They'll be able to fully appreciate it. And I will continue to enjoy unique visuals. What surely will please everyone is the terrific soundtrack. I think everyone has already appreciated the music by Mick Gordon, composer of Doom Eternal and Doom 2016. Therefore, meaty tracks of dark and aggressive electro will accompany the player in most tense and epic moments of the game. So what can be said in conclusion? Atomic Heart is one of the most ambitious projects of recent time. In a few years, it has managed to gather an army of fans and an army of haters long before release. There were a lot of things the developers wanted to put into the game, and they 100% had to cut out quite a lot, either due to uselessness, clunky implementation, or lack of time. The development process was not always smooth as well. And let's not forget about the delays. But everything I just listed can be applied to literally any game. As Ken Lee even once said, almost every game has to go through its own production hell. And now, the main question of the video. What to expect from Atomic Heart? Here's the important thing. Don't envisage a dream game, allowing your imagination to add something that hasn't yet been shown in trailers. It's worth to just wait and hope that the final product will be as close as possible to what the marketing specialist has shown us. Personally, I believe in Atomic Heart. Although I have no illusions about the game, it doesn't have to be a masterpiece, some kind of revelation, a new word in the industry. It just needs to be a good game that will be remembered and talked about even 10 years later. I also want to show some respect to the marketing specialists for all the hype they have raised about the project. Now, all that's left is to justify at least half of this hype and you could call it a success. Well, I guess that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and shake our polymer bell button. See you on Drigmatic.